Hey, and welcome to another vlog on a roundup of my mission trip to Sweden in 2015. Last three were covering, the first two were covering all the build up over the last 2 years, and last one was just about the plane. Where I finished up was the plane landing in Stockholm, in Arlanda Airport. This one is going to be all about the first stop, which was in a city called Karlstad. It's located in about the central of Sweden, and it's really where it was placed on my heart by God to really go and visit first, because I got introduced to the city by a pastor called Leonard, who I really owe a lot to for all of this. He helped me with so much. I could never repay his kindness and his guidance in all of this, and it was a shame that during the time I was in Sweden he wasn't. So it's something I am looking forward to. My next trip out there is to meet up with him and to see with him and to really get to thank him personally for all the help in this that went on. So I ended up in Karlstad. I left Arlanda Airport via train first thing in the morning. Ended up in Karlstad, I think, memory serves me correctly, about 10:30 in the morning. Didn't get any sleep on the train. Got straight off the train, backpack on, little bag with it, and first port of call was straight across the road. There was a church. I knew it was there. I'd seen it on Google because I'd Google mapped some of the city just to have a look around, and found the church and went over and just prayed straight for it. So I thought, why not? Let's start. Let's hit the ground running. So I prayed for the church, and I'll get onto that. Thanks, darling. Went over and prayed for the church. I went out and I said from the word go, I didn't care about denominations. Man-made denominations wind me up atrociously. I'll do a separate blog on that later on, once I've done all of this. And that time of the morning, no sleep after praying for the church. I didn't know what to pray for. I just left it to God. Whatever He spoke to me, whatever I said, was between to Him. He knew what was had to be said. He knew what to be prayed for. So I left it to Him and prayed while I was there. That time of the morning with no sleep, I misread my map, turned around and walked the wrong direction from where I was supposed to go towards my hostel, and I walked completely the other direction. I walked for, I think it was going on about 2 miles, and then eventually realised that I was heading in the wrong direction. Hang on a minute, there's a church around the corner. Anyway, so I went over and prayed for that church. And what struck me about that church is, it wasn't a very big church, but the location it was in was absolutely stunning. You had the church, then you had 4 lanes of road. I think it was 4 lanes or 2 lanes. I know it was a large road. And then you had a little bit of grass, about 20 feet of grass, and then you had a massive lake. It was absolutely a sight that you could never replicate. The sun was beaming down, and it was just bouncing off this clear blue water. And I just thought, God has a hand in everything. And to not to give me rain on the first day here, I was smiling, because I couldn't imagine what I'd do walking around with this backpack on. So I turned my map around, walked back the other direction, walked back to the train station, and I thought, my check-in for my hostel is until 3 o'clock. I thought, do I push it? I'll be cheeky. So I walked to the hostel, went the long way round, followed the road, and went in and said, look, can I check in early? It's no problem. So checked in early. I was blessed. Sat down, had a shower, got changed, and marked out some other churches in the city, grabbed open my notebook and tried to do a bit of searching for other churches and plan my way around. Leonard had told me about a church in Karlstad called Karlstad. English translation is Cross Church, and I was there. I was in Karlstad till the Monday morning, and I thought, I've got to attend it. I wanted to attend a Sunday service in the morning, and I thought that's the church where I'm going to attend. So I found that one on the map, and thought that's a better place to start where I'm going to pray for. Overall, the 4 or 5 days I was in Karlstad, I visited 18 separate churches throughout, at least. I'd visited some of them 2 or 3 times. Don't ask me why. It just felt right at the time to go over and pray with them several times through the 4 or 5 days I was there. I also left a bookmark from our church at some of the churches as well, to let them know that somebody had been there and prayed. I didn't really meet anyone in any of the churches. It's quite a shame not to see a lot of the churches open during the day, but I think we have the same problem here in England as well, with just manning the churches and things like that. But God sent me to walk over and put my feet on the ground and to pray over the churches, and that's what I did. After a couple of days, after about the second day I think it was, I found the Tourist Information Centre. Always a good place. I would always recommend, if you're going to the city to do any sort of mission work, go to the Tourist Information Work and pick up a map, a local map, which is in great detail. Mine over the 5 days got a heavy usage. As you can see, it is completely falling apart and full of holes. That comes of turning it inside and out so many times and writing on it and just marking down bus routes that were already on the map, which is now a great help. And on there, so I'm just trying to look at the map to see what I've looked at. I took a step counter with me, and I'd lost it after 2.5 days. I don't know where, but I thought I'd try and keep a count of how many steps I actually made. Physical steps I made in 2.5 days, I worked out, was in the region of about 43 to 44,000 steps, which I translated that into miles, and that was about just over 20 miles I'd walked. I did also, because I looked at the city of Karlstad, and there's a lot of churches within the city itself that are really close knit, but it's also got a few on the outskirts, and there's a couple on little villages just outside Karlstad. And I thought, I've got 5 days here, I've got to go around and get to as many as I possibly can. And time was not a problem. I had all the time in the world. I didn't have to be back for a certain time. I got up early in the mornings, and it was there. So I went to the bus station and I inquired, which is great. I spoke English. My Swedish was not that good at all. Slowly improving, but I'm getting there slowly. And I purchased a 3-day bus ticket. Ride as much as you want, 3 days. I was like, I can do that. So I looked down and I got the map and I looked at the bus routes. I looked at the churches around the bus routes. So I decided where to jump on and off the buses. Buses were very frequent and always on time. I was really impressed with that. They were also very, very clean, which is something I'm not used to riding the buses I do to and fro work nearly every day. And yeah, it was really, that's what I did for 4 or 5 days. I spoke to a couple of non-Christians who were in the hostel as well, and they asked me what I was doing, and I talked to them, and evangelizing that way as well. They all looked very shocked on why I was there and what I was doing, and I think some must have seen me as completely crazy, but we made it in this world doing what God wants us to do. I jumped on a bus and I headed slightly north to, forgive me for my pronunciation, a little village called Skåda, and it's just to the north. And I was looking at my map, and I was looking at the bus, because the buses have, inside the buses, they have a next stop, and it tells you and it shows you on the display what the next stop is going to be. And I was looking at the map, and I was looking at the board, and I was looking at listening, and I thought, I know where this is. It's not hard. I've got on enough buses every day. And for some reason, I missed the stop. And it wasn't till about 2 stops later, which is about a mile down the road, 2 miles, maybe a bit more down the road, that I realised I missed the stop. I'd gone into the next village, kicking myself completely. And I'd then decided to get back on the bus, which I needed to, and I thought, I'm going to find this church. And I found the church. Yeah. I literally got off the bus, turned around from the bus stop, and walked over the pavement, and there was the church. It was on the main road. I completely missed it. And I thought, okay, what a fool. I've wasted time. I've wasted God's time. That's about half an hour, 40 minutes gone. You know what? And I really did feel bad about it. And I went to the church. I went outside, and I stood in the grounds, and I put my arms out, and I just prayed. I prayed that whatever this church was in this community for, whatever God had put here, the people He put in it, that He'd use them to share His gospel, or something along those lines. And then the side door opened, and I didn't expect it, because any of the other churches I've been to, nobody had been there. And this woman came out, and she said, "Swedish, can I help you?" Which I found out afterwards, "Can I help you?" And I spoke back, and I introduced myself, and she goes, "What are you doing here?" And we had a conversation on, God placed it on my heart to be here, to come over to pray over the churches. And I don't think that's the full answer that she expected from somebody. So she invited me in. I found out she was a pastor, lovely woman. Her name's Anna, and she was having a meeting with 2 of the youth ministers that she's got with her, and also one of the church leaders from the church in one of the villages further north, who I was actually noted down on my map to visit a bit later, straight after this one. So it was on the same bus route. And yeah, we talked, we prayed, not just over myself and the mission, but we prayed over the troubles they were having as a church within spreading the gospel to the community, the trouble on getting people into church, the normal things that church have, how to put people into Christ. And yeah, what they were very, very hospitable, very generous, very Christ-loving. They showed me love, and that I didn't really expect from anyone, because I wasn't going out with any sort of expectations. I was going out thinking, I'm just going to go out and pray, and if I meet people, I'll talk. But to invite me in, to pray, to talk, to welcome me in that sort of aspect, and I got a full tour of the church, an amazing, amazing building. And they fed me as well, which was very, very, very welcomed. And I later found out that we were talking about, my whole little journey, which I just mentioned, and missing the stop. That if I'd have got off the bus at the time I was supposed to, I'd have missed them completely. They weren't there. They'd literally gathered about 10 minutes before I got there. So I'd have been gone and missed them completely. So I wouldn't have been able to talk to them, encourage as they encouraged me. And yeah, I really just came away from that church, from meeting the four of them, absolutely buzzing on a high. It was, yeah, I can only put it down to, and I'll say it over again, I can only put it down to God working. He knew excuse me, he knew I needed some sort of sign to say, you know, this is what I'm supposed to do, and because I just suddenly thought, I can't walk everywhere, and you know, I would like somebody to see, I'd like somebody to talk to, I'd like to encourage people, I want to be out there, I want to share the gospel, I want to try and do as best as I possibly can. You know, because one thing that kept going through my mind through this whole of the prep and the first couple of days, well, all of it really was, you know, I don't want to let God down. Just, am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? And, you know, God throughout the whole of the 2 weeks showed me many ways, and this was the first way that he showed me. You know, that not just encouragement, that I was able to be there and show somebody that, you know, there are Christians around the place that are praying and they are willing to answer God's call to whatever place it seems completely lunacy to go to, that you wouldn't expect a Christian mission person to be sent to. And you know, that was basically the first 3 days of what I did. Sat in the city, sat in Karlstad city centre, near the water fountain, well, near the water feature, looking at the statue that was there, and everyone walking past, catching the main bus, main bus stops, not the bus station, the main actual square bus stops. And I just prayed over the city centre, you know, that the city would have a fire starting, you know, a fire for Christ, and that the churches would join as one and rip down the man-made denominations and, you know, work together for the building of the kingdom. So that was the first 3 days of my journey. So that took me up to about Saturday. I didn't cover all the churches in the first couple of days, so I did the majority of the ones. I found a couple on the maps afterwards and going through searches from that I would cover in the next couple of days. But I'll do that in the next one. Yeah, because 5 days in Karlstad was pretty hectic in what to do. So yeah, that was Karlstad part 1. Any comments, any questions, or you know, please just leave them below. Yeah, if you want to, you can find me on Twitter at Sheep of Jesus. The hashtag I used whilst on mission was WFGSWE mission, which again will be placed on the bottom of the screen. If you like what you see, just press the subscribe button. Next one, I'll be looking at Karlstad part 2, taking in the Sunday service and what happened from there, and leaving for the next city. Hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to bringing you the next one. God bless.